Well, hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. For those of you who are new, and we do have some new faces, new subscribers, new people who are checking us out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, I want to say hello and introduce myself. My name is Jess, and this is the Inside Voice podcast. For those of you that have been here for a very long time and you were a part of the infancy stages of this podcast, I would like to give a special shout out to you and a special thank you to you for sticking around this long. This episode is going to be a little bit different. It's a little more casual. I wore my Dolly Reba 24 shirt, just a nice little white t-shirt. Just because I this is kind of like a pulling back of the curtain episode, if you will. I just wanted to take a moment and let us get to know each other a little bit better, rather than me just preaching at you for another episode. So, hi, welcome. I wanted to share a little bit about the Inside Voice podcast and where it comes from, what the inspiration was behind it, a little bit of the history of the podcast as well, just to give you a little depth, give you a little color, maybe give you the cliff notes. If you're not interested in going back and listening to all the episodes, there are, I think we're coming up on like 145, 150 now. So, yeah, it's been around for a minute. But first, a little bit about me. I am from a very small town girl, in California, graduated with 48. I think I could probably still name everybody in my graduating class. The entire high school was 220, very, very small. But yeah, I think it was a really special way to grow up in a place that you really felt seen, even if it meant that people knew your business. Everybody knew everybody in this small town. But yeah, I have also spent some time in New York City. I lived in New York City when I was in college for a semester. And so, yeah, not only have I seen both coasts, but I've seen both ways of living. I've seen very tiny town and I've seen very, very large city as well. But yeah, I am a radio broadcaster by trade. I do country music, and I host a show called Taste of Country Weekend, and that's on like about 100 stations across the country. I am married to my college sweetheart. We have an adorable dog named Ollie, and no kids. So, yeah, a little bit about me. All caught up now. But yeah, a couple of years ago, actually, it was in 2020, the Inside Voice podcast became a thing. I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I was feeling very motivated and very inspired by the personal development community, I guess is the best way to put it. I was really into like Rachel Hollis, Ed Milet, Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins. Like I was totally drinking the Kool-Aid for a couple of years. And it was 2020 that I was like, I'm going to enter into this space and it's going to be so great. 2020 ended up being probably the worst time to start anything because we all know what happened. But January of 2020 is when the Inside Voice podcast officially went live. And I got to say, it was a tricky time. Like I said, it was tough to start anything in 2020 and sustain it as well. But ultimately, when I was a kid growing up, I was somebody who was very ambitious. I wanted to play the sports. I wanted to get the grades. I wanted to compete in the pageants. Like I wanted to do everything and I wanted to succeed at everything as well. And because I was such like an aspiring kid and was trying so much, I also was very loud. And I just, I distinctly remember moments of my childhood being told, like, be quiet, like, you're so loud. Or, like, I remember when I was living in New York and I was working for ESPN New York as an intern in college. And we shared this office with the guys that were like in charge of digital. They did everything for the website, they did the photography, social media, all sorts of stuff. And I remember one of them being on the phone. You know, us interns, we're all college kids. We're like goofing off, being stupid. And I remember I laughed at something, and the look I got from this guy was like, I'm going to put you 6 feet under. He gets off the phone and he was like, "You are so loud." He's like, "I don't know what the deal is with that laugh." Which, looking back at it now, I'm like, that is so ridiculous because this guy was like from Long Island. Like, he was loud. I'm pretty sure he answered the phone with like a curse word and he was getting mad at me. Anyway, but yeah, I do remember being told, like, keep it down, you're too loud, which is so funny because I am a radio broadcaster now. Like, I talk for a living. Obviously, I'm doing this podcast. Um, I guess you just couldn't shut this mouth. But ultimately, what that inspired was this idea of like, we've all got something inside of us that's just dying to come out. You know, like we've all got a dream in our hearts. We've all got a personality within us. We've all got this person inside of us that God has made us to be that we've got to let out, you know? And the way that that manifests is into life, you know what I mean? So ultimately the inspiration was, I want us to get so in tune with the person that we've been created to be, get so in tune with what God has put on our hearts, that it's only natural for us to live this life that is so fulfilling and beautiful and magical, you know what I mean? And even saying that out loud, I can hear people saying like, "Oh, that's very intimidating, Jess. Like, if my life is anything less than that, then it must not be fulfilling." That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that God has created a beautiful life for us. And like what we talked about last week, He's made us a certain way. He's got a plan for us. We fit into that plan. We should be living that plan. We should be living and leaning into this person that God has made us to be in order to live this big, beautiful life at the end of the day. And so what started as this idea of letting who we are on the inside out has now turned into something even more beautiful when it comes to my why. It's also like, I want you to figure out who you are, but I also want you to like live your life. Maybe it's not by coincidence that I started this podcast in 2020. Looking back now, it's like we lost so much of ourselves during that time. We lost so much of who we were because like our lives were turned upside down. And I think for a lot of us and for so many of us, we forgot how to dream again. We forgot how to set goals for ourselves and to dream bigger for ourselves. I know I did. And it wasn't just the pandemic that did that, you know, because when the pandemic hit and things started shutting down and we were stuck at home, I remember thinking like, I want to come out of this stronger. I want to come out of this, you know, like you pulled the rubber band back and let it snap. You know, the slingshots come back and now I'm coming out of it, you know? But I think also another thing that had happened to me during that time was in 2021, I lost my mom. And it took a long time for me to come out of that. It took a while for me to face reality, grieve, mourn, deal with issues that I had, deal with things from childhood that I had that ultimately were holding me back and keeping me from leaning in to what I'm supposed to be doing on this earth, or what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, or who I'm supposed to be. So pandemic, yes, but also other things in our lives have hindered us and kind of led us down a path that maybe we weren't supposed to go down in the first place, you know? And so a lot of what my passion is and what my why is with this podcast is I want you to live your life. I want you to let what's inside of you, that voice inside of you, out, you know? And that voice can mean so many things. It's the voice of God, but it's also like the voice that He's given you. Let that out. Bring who you are to the table, because we are all begging for you to do that. The world needs you to do that. Your kids, your friends, your family, your job, you know, people need you. And I think one of the things that hurts me so much going through life is thinking that people will just let life happen and never be an active participant in it. People will just let things direct them in life, good, bad, whatever. And then they get to the end of it and it's like life didn't end up the way that they wanted it to. Life turned out okay, and we talked about this, a couple of weeks ago in the podcast about, you're in your 80s, you're pushing 90, maybe even 100 years old, you're on your rocking chair on your porch. Like, what kind of stories do you want to tell to the next generation? What kind of stories do you want to tell to your kids or to their grandkids about your life? Do you want to tell them that you just kind of like coasted through and, like, oh, I could have traveled, but it was tough. Or, oh, I could have, tried this or pursued this dream, but, it was just, it seemed like a lot. Like, is that the story that you want to tell? Or do you want to tell a story of like, man, I tried this and I fell flat on my face, but hey, I got back up and it was okay? Or do you want to tell the story of like, man, there was this one time that we went here and we did this and it was beautiful and I felt so small in that moment, but that was because I was taking in how big and beautiful this world is. And, it's just, I get frustrated to think that people would just let life happen. And I think where this really stems from for me is my mom. My mom, I watched her live life so isolated. I watched her live life, not going out with friends, not really like putting herself out there. She was there for us as kids. Don't get me wrong. Like that's one of the wonderful things that I remember of her and love that she did. She was always at our sporting events. She was always taking us to school. She was always, at home making dinner. I mean, she was a mom, But I think what really frustrated me is that my mom could have done more with her life. And it's not to say that what she did wasn't good, because obviously she raised me. No, but she was a mom, and that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful role. Please don't hear me wrong. But I think my mom held so much of who she was inside of her that nobody really got to experience how funny she was or how silly she was or inventive or creative or witty, I only got little glimpses of that. And after seeing her pass and knowing, I've shared with you in this podcast before that my mom took her own life, like that was how her life ended. And there's just something about that really just gets under my skin, because obviously like life didn't turn out the way that she expected it to. Life, that's not a dream that a kid has, like one day this is how it's all going to end. But I see moments of my mom's life, at least what I experienced with her, and I get frustrated because it's like, Mom, you had so much more to give and you didn't give it, And so I think that's where a lot of my passion for this podcast comes from, is like, I want you to live your life. I want you to put yourself out there. I want you to try. I want you to engage with people, connect with people. I want you to have this wild hair of an idea and be like, yeah, let's chase it. Let's just see where it goes. I want you to drive a different way home from work just because you can, because it's different and who knows what you might find. I want you to try a new recipe for dinner, or I don't know, pick up the phone and call somebody and check on them just because they're on your heart, like live your life. Like that to me is, that's what I want most for people. And that's why I believe that this podcast is so important to me, because this podcast is an extension of that very feeling that I have for others. I have that feeling for myself. I want to live. I want to experience life. I want to feel like I tried things and engaged with people and connected with people. And I got to be honest with you, after losing my mom, I had a hard time recognizing that I wasn't doing that. I was so comfortable making myself small. When you lose somebody that's significant in your life and you lose them in a way that is so unexpected and tragic, for me, my first instinct and my first inclination was to make myself so small that I didn't rock the boat. So that way, maybe this wouldn't happen to me again. It was such an unexpected thing from my mom. And to get that phone call was obviously a very traumatic day in my life, and to experience what, just to go through all of that. I immediately started subconsciously, like not even realizing that I was doing this. I just kind of stopped trying in certain aspects of my life because I was afraid that I was going to miss something, And I think that's ultimately why the podcast came to an end, even though it was like 2 years of doing more of the podcast. We started in 2020, did it till 2023, and then I put it up. But I think I just came to this realization that pursuing big, beautiful things leaves you open to disappointment. And I was also afraid that if I focused too much on something, again, the rug was going to be pulled out from underneath me. Right around that time, I had just gotten my opportunity of a lifetime to host Taste of Country Weekend, to be a nationally syndicated radio DJ. Like, it was a big deal. It was a big goal of mine. And I'd worked so hard for it. And right at that time is when my mom took her life. And so my first gut instinct was, don't take your eye off the ball. And I felt like I had missed something with my mom that I could have picked up on, that could have prevented her from doing what she did. And so for the next several years after that, it was like I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out on everything, because I felt like if I went all in on something else bad was going to happen. You know what I mean? So yeah, it took a year of therapy. I went to therapy last year to deal with a lot of things and to get to know me a little bit more. But ultimately, coming into 2025, I just felt this pull again of like, hey, we need to get back into that podcast. And God made it very clear to me, you will do the podcast again. He has a purpose for it. So here we are. But all that to say, I have such a heart for people to not miss out on life, because I feel like I saw my mom do that. And I also saw myself doing that as well, falling into those habits, not even realizing that it was a problem, but realizing more and more, especially getting back into this podcast and doing this again, I started realizing how much I wasn't living my life for the last couple of years. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. There are a lot of people, we all went through the pandemic. We all went through that awfulness, and I think there's probably a part in all of us, small or big, that hasn't given ourselves permission to just dive back in. Maybe we're all living our lives kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out, where, yeah, we've got dreams and things that we want to do, but also things could go wrong fast. And we all had that rug being pulled out from underneath us moment in 2020 that I think still sits with us, But gosh, we got to live, man. If there's anything that time should have taught us, and anything that I'd learned in therapy, it's like, this is our life, And there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, there's going to be easy times, there's going to be hard times. But at the end of the day, like, it's our life, and we need to pursue our life. We need to live our life. We need to show up authentically and lean into things that we feel a strong calling to, things that have been planted on the inside of us, and let that inside voice out. But yeah, I mean, just it's wonderful to sit here now doing this podcast. It's wonderful to be leaning into things that are new and different and scary, but also feel fulfilled with it too. And I've been honest with you that, like, this podcast could be hundreds of millions of followers one day, and that's great. Or it could be me and myself. I could talk to my dog all day long and it'd be just fine. But I do believe that there is something that God wants to do with this, whether it's just for me or for the masses. He's going to do something with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so clear with me of like, this is what you're supposed to do. So, all that to say, I'm very thankful that you're here. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. I hope that each and every week when this podcast hits, you feel a sense of like, this is somebody that has my back. This is somebody that, even if everybody else in my life doesn't get it, she understands and she's pushing me to pursue what I believe has been put on my heart. That is something that I've also had to come to the realization of, is that not everybody is going to support you. Not everybody is going to get it. Because again, this is what's been put on the inside of you. You know, they have their own things that have been put on the inside of them. And I think oftentimes we don't always have somebody in our corner that is like, go for it, you know? And you may be thinking, well, it's so easy for me to say that about whatever you're pursuing because I'm not invested in it whatsoever. But I am invested. I'm emotionally invested in it. Like, go for it, go. Because it does sit so heavy on my heart that you could go your entire life not trying whatever it is and get to the end of it and be incredibly disappointed. I don't want to live my life like that. I hated seeing my mom live her life like that. Again, I'm not trying to put my mom down at all. I just recognize that she could have experienced more. She could have let herself out more. She could have loved herself more in a way that allowed her to overflow to other people. I'm a firm believer that we're all here for a reason. Like, God put you right here, right now, in this moment, in that family, in that job, in that home, in that community, in this year, in this generation. He put you where you're at right now for a reason. Lean into that, you know? Don't think that, oh, well, if maybe down the road it'll be greater. Oh, I wish I would have been born at this time, or I wish I was there. I wish I was that. Like, be right here, right now, leaning into it. And the beautiful things that he's put around you, you know. I wish my mom could have done that a little bit more. And I think also at the end of the day, like, we all need for each of us to do that, you know, because we've been put here for a reason, because we're around the people that we're around for a reason. It's like we're expected to show up and be present and present ourselves and bring everything that we are to the table. That's what makes life beautiful. That's what makes the world beautiful. So I'm so thankful that you're here and a part of this journey as we go through life together. I want to invite you to be a part of that. I hope that you would invite me in as well. And like I was saying, you know, there's going to be people in your life that will make it very clear that they don't get this calling that you have on your life. They don't get this inside thing that you're letting out. I get it. Okay. And I want to be that person in your corner if you feel like you don't have anybody else in your corner. I think that sometimes we start chasing after something and even the people closest to us don't get it. And it's not because they're being mean about it. It's just not, it's not their calling. It's not their thing. You know what I mean? And I've even had to tell myself, like, my husband's my best friend. He knows everything about me. He is not going to care about the calling on my life as much as I do. If I don't care about it, he's not going to care about it. If I don't care about it, nobody's going to care about it, you know? And that's no slight to him. That's no slight to anybody else on this earth. It's just, this is me. This is my thing. This is my calling. This is my purpose. This is how God made me. And this is how I'm supposed to show up in this world that he's put me in, you know? And it's up to me. It's on me to make it happen. That's another thing. We can get into that in another podcast, but, part of letting your inside voice out, part of letting what's in here out is recognizing that, like, it's on you. Nobody's going to do it for you. Okay. So the things that you're pushing for, the things that are on your heart, the things that you're dreaming about, the goals that you've set for yourself, like, you're going to have to make them happen. But like we talked about last week, because God made you and formed you in the womb and God has made this plan for you that will prosper you and give you a future and a hope because he made the thing and he gave you the vision, you fit into it. You know what I mean? Like there's no like, it's meant for you. But that also means like that it's on you to get out there and make it happen. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So I hope all that made sense. I didn't prepare for this podcast as much as I didn't prepare at all for this podcast or this episode as much as I usually do. Maybe you notice no difference whatsoever. I don't know. All that to say, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being a part of this. I hope that me stepping into what I believe that God has called me to do, which is this, to be on YouTube, to be on, podcast hosting sites, to put this content out there. I hope that me leaning into this gives you inspiration to lean into what you are supposed to do. So I always try to leave like a little bit of homework. My homework to you, figure out what's in here. Give yourself grace, give yourself time, give yourself love to figure out what God has put in you and who he's made you to be, and then get out there and start putting it out there and doing what he has called you to do. Please do it for my sake. Like I said, I get frustrated when people talk about something but don't do it. I've got people in my life that have big, beautiful dreams, and it's like they're just, one day. Now. So thank you for being a part of this. We'll reconvene next week with another episode. Please like, subscribe, and share. And when I say share, I don't mean just, share the podcast with other people, but also share with me, what you're pursuing and what you're chasing after in life. I love to hear that because it gives me an opportunity to pray for people. I love when people open up and give me a little bit of them, give me a little bit of insight into them, because then I get to go talk to God about them, which is always a lot of fun for me. I really do get a lot of joy out of that. So, if you want to share maybe what this podcast has done for you, or maybe a little bit of what you want to see from this podcast, what would be helpful in the future, of course, I would love to hear that as well. But again, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing and sharing and just being a part of this. It's been a lot of fun. So hopefully you know a little more about me, a little bit more about the heart that goes into this podcast each and every week. This is your life, and there's something so beautiful and wonderful about you. There's a reason why God put you here, and there's a reason why he put those ideas and dreams into your heart. So let's get serious about making those things happen, all right? I'll see you next week.